Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Brett Allan Show, a pop culture podcast where we interview your favorite actors from film and television, comedy, music, wherever pop culture exists. And we have a very special guest today. We've been talking to a lot of cast from the upcoming film, The Many Saints of Newark, which is a prequel to The Sopranos. But it also, there's a lot of things going on in this film. From what I understand, there's not a lot of information out there. So what we get today, I think, is going to be very special. And we are chatting with the amazingly talented Alexandra Intrator. She is going to be in the film, and she plays a very iconic role in the film, Janice Soprano. I know our fans are excited about this. And we'll talk about what we can. Alexandra, welcome into the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes. And we were talking before we started recording. This is her first podcast. So we have the exclusive on this. I'm excited. Thank you for joining me. This is going to be a lot of fun. So we're talking about the Many Saints of Newark. And I know you're probably very limited on what you could talk about, but let's just talk about what we know. Your role as Janice and kind of how she fits into this storyline of what can we expect? What can you tell us?
That's a really hard question to answer because, everything is so on lock, of course. But it's a movie about, kind of the people who were around Tony as he was growing up. And, Janice is his older sister, and they have this great relationship kind of, before they get older and, everything that we know about the show. She goes to Venice and all that kind of stuff. So we kind of get to see the family dynamic a little bit. And just how they interacted in their very crazy and toxic home life and how they handled that together.
Yes. And I think that what's going to be interesting about this is that we are getting younger versions of all of the characters that we know and so emphatically fell in love with the show. And I think people need to understand that this is not like a reboot or a retelling. This is essentially what or who made Tony Soprano, which I think is what we do know about this. Had you seen the show prior to booking the role, or did you watch it after? What was kind of your connection with this story as you came into this iconic role?
So it's funny because I don't even think I was born when the show came out, but actually, no, I think I was born.
So you're making me feel really old right now, but that's okay. I appreciate that.
I can't remember. I think the show aired in 2000, right? 2001.
Yeah, so early 2000s for sure.
Yeah, so I was born in 2000. So I was a little kid, but The Sopranos was a huge deal in my house. My dad was a stay-at-home dad with me, and that made the content that I was taking in a lot different than I think it would have been if my mom was staying home with me. So I really grew up on the show. Like, just I can remember. I was talking about this with my brother recently. I can remember it when the last episode aired because my dad was freaking out, thinking that the cable went out. Like, he was like exploding it was like the craziest I've ever seen. He was like, what? Like, what? And so, it's part of my core memories. And like, I was telling Alan Sepinwall, I was like, I used to get in trouble all the time for swearing as a little kid. Like, my mom used to wash my mouth out with soap because I was repeating what I was hearing on TV. So I would watch The Sopranos with him. I watched The Wire with him. We watch The Godfather part 1, 2, and 3, like, still all the time. The mob film and TV was a huge part of my upbringing. And it's kind of funny because it has nothing to do with my family or the dynamic that we have. But it's fun for us. And so, yeah, I had seen the show, and I watched it actually by myself in high school and loved it. And then when I got the breakdown, when I got the audition, it said like Untitled David Chase Project. And my dad and I were already on the trails of this. Like we had seen stuff about this before. We were like, oh my God, they're gonna make more Sopranos, blah, blah. And so we kind of figured it out, but the script was super vague. And I had like a fake character name and all this kind of stuff. I could not figure out who it was. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go into it, do my best. Was radio silence for 2 months. And then, my manager called me like, I think like 2 weeks before we were supposed to start filming. And she was like, how quick can you get to New York? So I didn't really have any time to prepare. But I also I thought about like going through and like trying to binge watch really fast before we started, but I really didn't want to impersonate Janice because I feel like it wouldn't serve that character the right way. And also, it's a different version of her. It's the version of her that's not acting out on her trauma yet. It's the version of her that's, still in that toxic environment and soaking all of that up. And it's not come out of her yet. The crazy that caused hasn't come out yet. So it's a different character in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a thing too, that Samson Moekiola, who is in the film, told us.
Yeah, we're great.
Yeah, he talked about you too. And he told me, he's like, if you can get her, I said, she's coming on just after you. So
we were just on the phone. That's so funny.
Yeah. So he told me that when he got the breakdown, well, his story was hilarious. So when his episode airs, you'll find it humorous because he told me like he emailed his manager and said, I want to audition for this role. And he's like, his manager told him, hey, slow down, buddy. That's not how Hollywood works, but we'll see what we can do. But he told me like the breakdown for his character was like Big Butter or something like really kind of off the wall. But when he saw David Chase, he actually put it together and was like, okay. But he even said that his role is slightly detached from what we know in the series that was on HBO. So did you have a chance to connect with the actress who played her on the HBO series like he did with his character? I mean, did you have any kind of conversations, or you mentioned this is obviously before we get the crazy or anything like that. So did you just kind of separately decide, okay, these are the choices that I'm going to make as an actress and how I'm going to approach Janice Soprano versus what obviously we saw on television? Because she's not affected in this storyline. She's, from what we know, she seems normal.
Yeah, right. I mean, and it's not, she's not a huge, I'm in just as much as Samson is, but I actually, so when I got to New York, so right after I booked the role, Michael had reached out to me and was like, when you get here, let's connect and, start to build our relationship. And so when I met him for the first time, we immediately kind of started talking about Aida. And I actually, I was one of those people who actually like Janice. I know a lot of people don't, but he, I guess, has a really good relationship with her. So he gave me her phone number, and we did try to connect, but she lives in Montauk and I live in Texas. So it was a little difficult, but I didn't really make an effort to find out anything about, the way that she played the role, because like you said, I did want to bring something different to her. And I mean, there's just no way I could ever do what she did. I mean, she's just so amazingly talented, and I had huge shoes to fill, and that was really intimidating to me. And I feel like it almost would have made it worse if I was like trying to take advice from her. Do you know what I mean? Like,
no, I get it. Yeah, for sure.
But I mean, I'm really nervous and excited for her to see it because, I'm sure she feels like Janice is her baby. So I'm hoping that she's satisfied.
I think you will do an amazing job. I've seen other work that you've done as I'm doing research about you. So I think it will be fantastic. And I know our listeners and the fans are really excited about this. I think I remember when the show ended, I thought the same thing. Did my satellite dish go out? What's happening? And I think it was smart how they chose to end the show. And now we are getting a whole different side of it. I want to talk about your actor's journey because that is the one thing about people I find so fascinating, how they get into this crazy world that you're a part of.
Mhm.
For you, what was your journey? What was it that interested you in acting in the first place and made you decide, okay, this is something that I want to do or I want to be a part of, and get involved in this somehow?
So, I mean, it's funny. I always have been interested in performance. I was a dancer for a long time. I started dancing very young. I was always interested in that kind of, just performing and being a part of that. And then, so my mom, she was a stylist for like magazines and stuff. That's like a big industry. That's actually what I do for my day job now. And she was like, trying to get me into modeling and stuff. And I just hated it. It was so boring. And we took a break from that. And then I started to really watch a lot of movies. And so like in about second grade, I had seen the movie The Princess Diaries, and Anne Hathaway like just made me, I just wanted to be her. Like I was like, I want to do this. And I remember, so I used to like read the newspaper. And there was like the thing in the Dallas, it's called like Paper City. And there was like a advertisement for a acting class with John D. Kino, who was on a Disney show at the time. And I would circled it and showed it to my mom. I said, I want to do this. I want to try this. And so we went, and he ended up pulling my mom and I aside and saying, she should stick with this. And I ended up being referred by him to a local acting teacher here who really took me under her wing. And I just became obsessed. Like I just wanted to learn everything that I could. And I was about 9 at this point. And then like a year later, she helped me kind of get an agent and all that kind of stuff. And it was kind of from there, I just started auditioning for stuff, and I was nowhere near the actor that I am now. And I think about it a lot, that I'm really glad that I didn't kind of have a career as a kid, because I'm happy that I got to live a normal life and stuff. But it was interesting. I just kind of decided that I wanted to do it. And so I did. And I'm grateful that my parents supported me. And since then, I've just have continued to train. And I'm lucky to live in an area where it's really prevalent. And I have the resources to do so. And yeah, I signed with a Los Angeles talent agency that I'm still with when I was, I think, 10 or 11. And I've been auditioning and working on small things ever since. And so it's just always been a part of my life, and it's my favorite thing in the world.
That's
and I'm so
fantastic.
grateful. Yeah, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity now.
And what a massive project to be a part of. My goodness. I mean, it's gigantic.
It's overwhelming, to be honest.
I can imagine it has to be on so many different levels. It has to be very overwhelming. The pressure, although you're not necessarily putting it on yourself, what's coming externally from the media, I imagine, has to be a lot. But you seem to be handling it very well, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for you. This is a big deal. It's going to be exciting to see how this all pans out. We do have Matea Conforti coming on as well in a week or so, who plays the even younger version of you.
And she's a boss. She's like on Broadway. Like I feel honored to have her as young, she's cool. She's a cool kid.
Well, it's very exciting, and I believe the future is bright for you for sure. This is going to be an amazing film. We are talking about the Many Saints of Newark, and please check this film out. We have been chatting with Alexandra Intrator, and thank you everybody for listening to this podcast and being a part of it. If this is your first time, please head over to Apple Podcast, subscribe, listen, give us a kind rating and review. Be sure to check out all the other amazing people we've had on the show as well. This is amazing. Alexandra, thanks for joining us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. It was nice talking to you.